Okay, thank you for watching. Right close to the camera, let's go back a little bit. So today's video is about death. So today's video is about IQ versus EQ. This is something I've only recently learned in maybe the past 2 or 3 years, and I've become to realize that if you don't know this information, you are put at a disadvantage. But knowledge is really one of those things where it is power. If you know certain things, you can help others. It's not only a place to put people in a compromising position, but it's also a place where you can be of benefit to others and serve others, and maybe be a leader or a role model. IQ versus EQ, that's an interesting one. Let me explain to you this. I grew up around computers. I grew up around technology, much like pretty much everyone here watching this video. If you can use a computer, I assume you have a decent level of computer or technical knowledge in devices. Anyway, it's pretty much everyone in the younger generation these days. IQ versus EQ. IQ, we think Einstein, brain, power, capacity, smart, genius even, the ability to solve problems at a fast rate. IQ versus intellect, I'm still grasping of. I do not understand entirely, and if I was, I would probably have a very high IQ. See where I'm going. So, IQ does not necessarily dictate success or financial success. EQ does not necessarily dictate success or financial success, but both of them are different ways that we can categorize or define mental capacity to the extent that it may be able to predict a higher likelihood or outcome for success in different fields and areas of life, in my opinion. I do believe that IQ is something which is put on a pedestal these days, but EQ is kind of shunned down. Specifically from political parties, political ideologies. The idea of EQ can also be traced back to the word empathy, the ability to take care of others, to not burn bridges, to use your emotions. So IQ is more intellect or intelligence, right? Intelligence, I'm pretty sure that's the one. It is not intellect. You should really Google the difference between intellect and intelligence. I'm yet to do more research on it, but I'd definitely recommend it. Why this is important is because rather than me defining things, it's really going to dictate how you navigate life and your level of awareness. I do believe in life, knowledge, spirituality is one way to get there, along with a whole bunch of different pathways. But the idea of awareness is just knowledge being used to have a higher capacity of, I guess, consciousness, intelligent, to be able to operate in life. So, IQ versus EQ. How can I explain it better? EQ is emotional intelligence. IQ is more just intelligence, so brain capacity and power. And I'm no expert on these matters, but what I do understand about them is that the difference between IQ and EQ. IQ may sometimes result in, well, if you favor IQ over EQ, it may sometimes result, or if you value IQ over EQ, it may sometimes result in you burning bridges with a lot more people, cutting off people, getting work done, but also reacting negatively. It's not all the case. And it does take two to tango. It does help if you have a decent level of IQ and EQ, but I am a firm believer that it's not what you're born with, it's how you exercise your mind and how you navigate life and what you're willing to value and what you're willing to compromise. So IQ versus EQ. If that was IQ, then what is EQ? My explanation is EQ, or having a decent level or understanding of EQ, helps you keep bridges rather than burning them. Finding different ways to deal with people rather than cutting them off. EQ also helps you understand what's preventing you from getting work done. I'll give you a particular example. If you're very intelligent, right, and you know how to do a certain task, perhaps someone comes at you with feedback or they have a question, you might see it as a waste of time, specifically in the workplace, right? Depending on your level of behaviour, you may react to that negatively, or you may just completely ignore them. Toxic trait, but let's just take a step back. The idea of EQ, if you have a negative reaction, then you go back to doing your work. If you're highly intelligent and then you go back to doing your work, some people may be able to focus and cut out any emotional interaction, but at a certain point, if you have a level of IQ which is higher than others, or which is functioning at a better rate, what you will realize is your emotions still dictate your mood and your ability to perform tasks. So having a solid level of EQ or emotional intelligence allows you to find out what is preventing you from getting the work done. Perhaps you should have apologized to that person. And if you were emotionally intelligent, if you were empathetic, or if you had an understanding of a certain situation which went wrong or brushed off negatively, you would be able to say, hey, I do apologize. I was really just thinking in my own lane. I believe that I knew the faster way, but I'm open to hearing your explanation. Or perhaps we can save this for a later time. That's a bit of procrastination, but it's better to get things done as soon as possible rather than leave them lingering for too long. Because effectively, if you focus purely on IQ and not EQ, and you just put things a bit later and just brush them off to the side, it means you don't value them. And that is you sometimes putting pain on other people who aren't in a position to be able to explain their intentions or to be able to reconcile such actions. And if you think you're a strong person, or if you think you're in a position where you are strong enough to just completely ignore such behaviour, you're also putting that person at a disadvantage by impoverishing them or creating a negative environment for them to be able to function. So they're not getting their work done, you're able to get your work done, and that's all that matters to you. It's kind of selfish in a way. So EQ helps you understand what's preventing you personally from getting the work done, what's preventing others from getting the work done. And I think one of the most basic understanding of EQ is that if you really want to, not that I chase it, but if you really want to focus on power and control, it does not come from authority and shouting down and poking at people. It comes from being able to manage your own emotions. And then the next level of awareness or consciousness in the field of emotional intelligence is you are now able to manage your emotions and regulate your emotions, so you're now able to manage other people's. So if someone comes at you with a really negative, vast environment, rather than reacting and biting back, you now are smart and wise enough to know how to build that bridge so you can both get work done, or you can both have a positive channel. And what that really means is this person might be in a negative headspace, and you have the skills, the emotional intelligence, the toolkit to be able to solve this person's problem, or to be able to get them to rationalize and understand what they're going through. So they are now at a happy, peaceful medium or equilibrium. And in doing so, that builds a bridge between you and them, but it also allows you to get your work done, because trust me, when there's negative or bad energy wherever you are, at some point it's going to affect you no matter how strong you are. And this is something that not a lot of people realize. And even myself personally, I was in a position in life not too long ago where I thought just ignoring things and being strong and dealing with them was just the way to deal with it. But now that I look back at life, it's much more important to find different ways to manage or regulate your own emotions and deal with other people, so you're not just having these bad vibes or cutting them off. I had a great manager, more of a leader and more of a mentor, and he explained to me something about the brain which I kind of knew. But the way the humans are supposedly built, this is scientific, you can look it up, there is a primal reptilian part of our brain, they like to call it, the reptilian brain. I think it's in the amygdala, certain part of the brain. And this part of the brain regulates your survival instincts. So if you're put in a corner, backed up, or you feel negative, or you feel like any of these negative emotions, which really lead us back to our primal origins, if you believe in evolution. The belief is that when you're in such a position, your brain is in hardwire overdrive, constantly reacting, and you're kind of fight or flight mode. And what you'll realize is people who are of a low level of emotional intelligence, which can be you sometimes we all have different things, it can be me sometimes, when you're at a very low level, or when you're just not feeling great, your brain will resort to hard overdrive survival mode just so you can meet your base level needs. If you look up the concept of Maslow's hierarchy, food, shelter, love, needs, different things like that, if these base level needs aren't met, then you will not be able to reach the point of self-actualization, or as I like to call awareness, or some form of enlightenment. But you'll not be able to reach this great part of this Maslow's pyramid. I'll see if I can put it up on the video, but definitely Google it up, M-A-S-L-O-W. So if you're not able to reach this level, or if certain people aren't, they're in hard overdrive and they're completely reactionary. What you can do, especially if you're working with children or you're dealing with individuals who aren't in a good headspace or mental headspace, you can find out what base level needs aren't met. And this can be things such as maybe you're thirsty, maybe you've just been working too physically hard, maybe you just need to drink some water. Then after a few gulps, you might feel a bit better. And even that's something that you can encourage by a friend if someone's not feeling well, different things like that, because your base level needs ultimately impact your mental state. If you're not doing financially well, you might be a bit more negative towards people gaining an upper hand or advantage in life. If you're not in a certain place in life, I'm going off script, let's go back to the script, but if you're not in a certain place in life where you really want to be, that may impact your trajectory and your whole mood in a certain environment. Knowing when to leave a certain environment and staying is really tough, and I would strongly recommend at some point in your life that you exercise as much grit as possible doing things that you don't like, because I know a lot of people that just do purely only things they like, and that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I respect that as well. Finding a passion path that lead purpose is great, but life does not always end up that way. At some point we are financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically trapped to one barrier of life, and if we don't have the mental grit or mental fortitude to be able to stay in such a position for an extended amount of time where we experience discomfort, we will not be able to survive, because we'll have mental or emotional breakdowns, and we won't be able to stay in X position unless we get help from others. And help from others is also an important one, but we can get onto that in perhaps another video. Just drink a bit more water. Perhaps you're feeling a bit hot and the sun's out, so you need to put on a hat just to make sure you don't get sunburnt, which will affect your mood. Or red skin blisters, perhaps there's mosquitoes around, so you need to put on mosquito repellent. All of these things affect your mood, which is ultimately your emotional state, right? So that is, in as short a time as I could explain, a little bit of emotional intelligence and how it affects you and what it means. I'm just going to have a quick look at how long I've been recording this video for. I think it's for the past 13 minutes, all right. So effectively, why I like to analyse the difference between these two was because I was someone who valued IQ much more than EQ, but now, as I'm getting older, I'm realising IQ only gets you so far. If you are so intelligent but you're unable to work with people, then you will only be able to work with yourself, which means you can't work or collaborate with others, which is pretty much every other workplace. Your only option is to be self-employed, a self-driven person who has complete autonomy, which is not very easy for a lot of people. So you need to be able to work with people, and people who are really good at this are people who have done sports in their life, which is why schools are so important, because you see people riling up in the social playground, but the second it goes to sport, it's like all tribes, all prejudices disappear, and you're all playing for one team, for one combined purpose. That could be a business as well. That's why the idea of competition is as toxic as it is healthy. Okay, So I've got a few dot points here that I explained, and this is something to do a bit with IQ and EQ. So people on the IQ side of life will find that EQ adds to a new level of competition. If you are very competitive and you value IQ more than EQ, as in what you mean is you've more maybe alpha or testosterone based, which is more of a male trait, but not necessarily. What that really means is that people on the IQ side of life, the benefit for them learning things like EQ would be that it adds to a whole new level of competition. If you're constantly competing objective-based, which is this very two-dimensional side where you value where everything is done by intelligence, if you work in IT or tech, even in law, what you might find is that, some cricket or cicada going off, what you might find is that the idea of EQ adds this whole third dimension to operating in life, where you're no longer operating as in, what do you have, what should I give, if you're a businessman, like, how can I solve this problem? And what you can find is that the tools and the skills that you can learn through emotional intelligence, which is things that you learn in sales sometimes, like building rapport, which has a lot to do with, hey, how are you going? How's your day been? Rather than, actually, that's not a great example. Rapport has more to do with establishing a more human base with someone. So if I greet someone and someone's like, hey mate, how's it going? And then you say, good. That's not a great level of rapport. In sales, they teach us this. But if you're like, hey mate, how's it going? How's the weather over there? Where are you from? Hey dude, weather's not bad. Still has a negative attitude, mind you. But I'm going okay. I'd love to do X, Y, Z today. This person now no longer just thrives off good and has like this closed response. They can be like, oh, I just saw a blueberry, 1 second. That's really cool. I've never seen blueberries in real life. Just growing wild. 1 second. This is why I love the USA, because there's always things like this, blueberries, wild blueberries. I wonder if I can eat them. Yep, they're definitely blueberries. They taste like blueberries. Nah, just joking. So, where was I going with this? I was trying to act like I just got poisoned, but that might have looked like I tripped. Silly joke, silly humour. Okay, where I was going with this is that rapport is one of those skills in emotional intelligence where it establishes a base of not just a shallow relationship. It may seem like small talk, and not a lot of people like doing that, but you can make small talk or a long talk different. If you're a deep person like me, you can have a bit more of a deeper conversation with them. If you're a short, shallow person, you'd probably have a short, shallow conversation too. Not saying that that's a bad thing. I really put small talk in a really bad light there. So I do value small talk. So people on the IQ side of life will find that EQ is one of those things that does add to a new level of competition. It's almost enlightenment, as I like to say. And why I say enlightenment is because it's very taboo and touchy as like a spiritual word, but the idea of enlightenment is like a raised level of consciousness or awareness. So if you look at it purely from a scientific point in life, it is more knowledge, right? So more knowledge allows you to operate the game at a better playing advantage. So if you're thinking from a point of competition, and this is specifically maybe for a demographic that I like to target, which is probably younger men. I think it is really important that people are competitive because it makes sure they are able to find what they like and get good at it and get really good at it so they might be able to serve their community or others. It is almost enlightenment. Next thing I'd like to go into is that because it's almost enlightenment and it's this new level of competition, is that I did have this manager, and he explained this, who highly valued emotional intelligence. He was a very intelligent man. He still is. I probably can still have a great conversation with him to this day. I know so. But if he was, okay, I'll explain to you one thing. If I was in a certain environment or workplace, I'll just say workplace, and I felt like I couldn't get something done, I would react emotionally frustrated. And this is something that you learn as you get older. But I would be so emotionally frustrated that I couldn't get something done because I saw it as the only way to solve X problem. My manager came into this workplace maybe a year later. He was a new manager, and he looked at the business objectives, he looked at life, he looked at everything that was going on in that workplace, and he asked me what some of the problems were. And I told him these were some of the problems, which emotionally frustrated me because not only had I tried to get there objectively, but I didn't have the same level of emotional intelligence as him. He was obviously much older, that's one of the things, but he clearly valued it a lot more than me. And through his understanding and his leading by example, I now value emotional intelligence a whole lot more, or just the idea or the understanding and the things that it encapsulates. I'm by no means a role model in that sphere of life, but it's something that I'd like to get better at. One of the things that he did was he would look at a situation. But if you are angry at a situation because you don't get what you want, emotional intelligence will be able to help you understand how to achieve it. And what this manager did was he basically said to some of the people in the workplace, he didn't even say anything, right? This is how important it is. He listened. He listened not only to me, he listened to the other people in the workplace. He exercised my ideas, and they gave their feedback to him. What he was then able to do was use this level of knowledge or awareness, which only emotional intelligence helps you with. Self-improvement, right? People want to self-improve, but they don't want to focus on emotional intelligence, where that is one of the things that IQ doesn't get you. He was then able to take all of this information, which he gathered, and run up to me and say, hey, what if we exercise this idea? He was able to then run to other people around and say, hey, what happens if we exercise this idea? And he got feedback. Because in the past, the way I had dealt with it is these people would have said something which sounded a lot like a no. I would have been just really annoyed and angry, right? But he was able to look at it, and he was able to be like, hey, what are you trying to achieve out of this situation? What are you trying to achieve out of this situation? Or why does this seem like a problem in this situation? And we were able to find some form of middle ground, which still helped me achieve my objective and still helped them understand exactly what the problem we were trying to solve was, which leads to ultimate happiness, I guess you could say, or peaceful resolution. Not the most clear example, and I don't want to go too specific into that specific situation, just out of care and respect and privacy from a previous employer and people in that workplace. But that is some of the things that EQ can teach you. So I've got a lot more to talk about EQ further down the line as I learn more about it. But I like to think that it's a constant state of evolution and growing process, and it's something that you have to sometimes mess up in order to learn. But sometimes, if you can be proactive about it, you might be able to take something from it. And this is my understanding, at least, of the idea of EQ. So thank you for watching the video. I'm sure I could do a segue to another video right now, but like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do to help pass this forward. I'd love it if you pass this forward to people who would specifically take some of this advice. I think it's important. I hope other people out there in the world find it important, and if not, I'm happy making this video because at least it documents my personal journey as far as I wouldn't be making this type of content or talking about these type of things maybe a few years ago. So I'm very happy with the progress I've made anyway. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you later.